What a crazy day in the markets. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another trade recap. Today is January the 29th. Very volatile today, the day after FOMC and a bunch of big tech reporting. The markets really threw us in for a loop today. Really fairly neutral coming to market open, and then we ended up having a huge sell-off right off the bat. We'll go over all the trades that we ended up taking today. I actually ended up taking three. First trade of the day started in a little bit of drawdown on MU. Wasn't quite red, to be honest. And then I had to battle my way back on Tesla and Nvidia. Let's first hop right into, of course, my trade zealous statistics for the month. It is almost the end of the month here. It's been absolutely fantastic. Great way to start off the year and really to start off the month so far. So as you can see right here, these are my TradeZilla statistics, up about $146,000, 65% trade win percentage, profit factor 5.5, daily win percentage 82%, average win to loss ratio 2.95. As you can see, this week so far has been fairly tough. This is actually my slowest week of the month so far. We were expecting a little bit slower price action, of course, pre-FOMC and pre-earnings. So the first 3 days really wasn't expecting too much in the markets. And then, of course, today we're expecting the volatility to ramp up, with, of course, FOMC being over, no rate cuts, and of course, we had some big tech reporting here as well. So I ended up making $13,000 today. It took about 3 trades, putting me up back green on the week, up about $10,000. But at one point, I was down close to $9,000 on the MU trade. So started off the day quite rough, but ended up battling my way back. And there's a bunch of, nice opportunities towards the downside. But I'll have a full breakdown for you guys this weekend once the month closes. But yeah, month's been absolutely fantastic so far, with the exception of a few days earlier this week. There's been super nice opportunities, so hopefully you guys are taking advantage of this. With that being said, let's hop on to exactly the trades that we end up taking, starting off with MU. So first things first. Coming into market open, I had a neutral, actually a little bit more of a bullish stance in the market. So coming into this morning, I was just going to wait for the reaction that we have off key levels. Right off the bat, I like this MU trade, right? Break above our previous day highs, looking for continuation towards the upside. Ultimately, the QQQ was the determining factor here. You can see the Qs really drop within the first 5 minutes and did not show any strength whatsoever. So the Qs immediate drop off the bat, SPY drop off the bat. Basically, everything was dropping. The only thing that actually looked somewhat decent was MU, and I ended up taking a stab, a lot more of an aggressive entry than I would have. But let's kind of go over the thesis and what I was looking for coming into market open. As you can see for MU, still relatively bullish here on the higher time frames. Every single dip has been being bought up, and we're just continuing higher. So really solid push towards the upside here on MU. The key levels that I have marked out coming into market open, of course, was the previous day highs. So if we go back onto it, the previous day highs here was key, as long as you can maintain above our previous day highs. If we can maintain above really now this 434, we can be looking for continuation back towards upside here on MU. So if we go into the lower time frames, as we play out the tape, turn back on our drawings, you can see MU right off the bat push lower down in towards our 434, and you can see buyers started stepping in. Once buyers started stepping in, what we're essentially waiting for here is the break above, retest off our previous day highs for this continuation towards the upside. If you keep playing out the tape, you can see MU, nice kind of hold compared to the overall market. So you can see QQQ at this time was dropping towards the downside. So I was interested in MU. If the markets can bounce, we can look for MU continuation back towards the highs. So now all I was looking for was the retest off our 5-minute range high, and of course our previous day highs here as well. So if we play out the tape, you can see retest, a couple buyers stepping in. This was my mistake here. There was no reason to be aggressive on MU just because of the overall QQQ. And I also didn't get the greatest fill. So I ended entering on this candle close as this candle was forming. So my entry was here. Stop was all the way down in towards that previous day lows. And plus the spread was quite wide. So didn't enter in an optimal spot here on MU. And as you can see, came back down. Buyers were present. Tried stepping in off that 5-minute range high plus your previous day highs, came back up in towards high day, but ultimately kind of rejected off this key pivot point. And then that's the time I knew MU was going to be wrong. As soon as it broke underneath this, cut my position. And of course, the QQQ was maintaining weakness as well. So that was my cue that MU was. I had the right thesis, but overall, right, QQQ was dropping. The context wasn't the greatest. So right off the bat, within the first kind of 25 to 30 minutes, ended up taking a loss on MU. Ended up losing around $9,000 on this trade. So I lost more than I would have liked to. And that could have put me into a mode where I was like, damn, okay, I'm down for the week. I haven't really had any solid opportunities this week. Right now, the market's kind of dropping right off the bat. So I'm just going to be a little bit more patient, see what kind of sets up here. I know this was the main day, which we kind of talked about right after FOMC, after earnings, right? We're going to have some nice opportunities. So after I took this MU trade, I was looking at the overall market. If we go into the QQQ here, you can see every pop was just being shorted towards the downside, right? No buyers stepped in whatsoever. We're now underneath our earnings, basically our earnings candle low from yesterday, continuation towards the downside. I'm looking at QQQ here on the daily chart. We're having this big rejection off your all-time highs. You can see a decent pullback here on the QQQ. So after the Qs drop right off the bat, the key levels that we had more lower was all the way back down in towards, of course, your Monday's key levels and below, which was our last week's key pivot point, 618. So for the QQQ, markets was just maintaining weakness. If I just get rid of a bunch of these key levels here. So for QQQ, what I was looking for here now was just maintain weakness underneath key levels, which in this case was that that earnings low that we created yesterday. So for QQQ, once we started showing more weakness, maintained underneath key levels, up close candles, right? All I was looking for was just the QQQ continuation towards the downside. So that was the overall thesis, at least on the Qs, and then the SPY similar thesis here, right? Every pop was just being shorted. What I was looking for was just continuation lower here, now underneath your previous day lows. I'm not sure what is wrong with my drawing tool today, but the key levels was underneath that 694 for a continuation lower. So we're basically bearish on the market all day right off the bat, and now we're just looking for names to stay heavy. So with that being said, right, the SPY and Qs was bearish. Now let's go on to some of the trades that I ended up taking. So number one, as the overall market was dropping, I was keeping an eye on really any name to short towards the downside that had good risk to reward. My first one was on Nvidia here, which was the 185.70, puts off your previous day lows. Had a nice trade. Unfortunately, I ended up cutting my trailers before, as you can see, this huge drop towards the downside, which was a mistake. It would have been a much bigger day. But as you can see right here, what we had was Nvidia. I was actually coming into market open. I was leaning a little bit more towards the upside. I wanted to see the break above this 193, but you can see ultimately rejection off this level and a pretty big reversal. So as you can see here, we're breaking underneath. Sorry, we're rejecting off key levels. We're now breaking underneath your previous day lows. Now I'm just going to be looking for that previous day low short for this continuation towards the downside here on Nvidia. So if we turn back on the drawings, this is the level that I had marked out, which was that 190. And all I was looking for was the short off Nvidia previous day lows for this continuation towards the downside. As you can see, at the exact same time, during this case, right, the QQQ was looking weak as well. I actually had another key level here on the Qs. I got rid of it. But as you can see, the QQQ, the key levels that we have marked out, not sure what's up with my mouse today. But for the QQQ, the key levels that we have marked out was, if I'm not mistaken, we had this right here, which was the high that we created from last Friday. So it was our Friday's highs. At this moment in time, you can see the QQQ was staying heavy. I wanted to see really Friday's highs maintained for continuation lower. And you can see at the QQQ previous day low retest, very low risk for a potential nice move towards the downside. So I got in on this candle flip, got in right here. You can see held underneath our previous day lows, nice push towards the downside, took off 50% here. Now I'm looking for continuation lower. Unfortunately, I managed this quite poorly, to be honest. Key level came back up, ended up cutting the remaining position that I had in an unoptimal spot. And this was actually the perfect level that it actually rejected off of. And as you can see, nice continuation lower. So kind of managed this position a little bit wrong, but overall thesis was correct. Qs, we had that nice rejection, that exactly where we wanted to. Qs rejected once again off the 625 for a continuation lower. And then the next trade that I ended up taking, so I had two short positions. I had Nvidia. I also had Tesla. So Tesla was the big winner today, right off of our 425 higher time frame key level. Also our earnings low here as well. You can see contracts end up moving pretty solid, right? Off your 425 all the way down in towards really that 420, that 417, and close to that 415. So absolutely fantastic trade. These are my executions here on Tesla. This is a trade that ended up putting me nicely green on the day. So as you can see for Tesla, let's go into the higher time frame thesis. I know someone was mentioning earlier, right, not to trade Tesla. That's what I kind of mentioned here in the pre-market. We're stuck inside this range. So I'm not trading Tesla in between this range, but we broke outside the range. Now we can look to trade Tesla towards the downside. So as you can see here, we had earnings yesterday. Didn't really do too much, but initial drop right off the bat. You can see this is our earnings high plus your earnings low, drop right off the bat. Now we're underneath that earnings low. We could be looking for shorts underneath your earnings low for a continuation towards the downside. What we have marked out here is this up close candle here on the 15-minute time frame, right? Break, retest, continuation lower. So if you go into the 1-minute time frame, you can see here for Tesla, right? Support, turned into a little bit of resistance, got back above, but once it broke back underneath, that was our key sign, right? That reclaim setup for the downside. Once it broke underneath here, 1014, at this exact moment in time here on the QQQ, you can see it was rejecting off a key pivot level here as well, which every single pop was being shorted on the Q, so that gave me more conviction towards the downside. For Tesla, broke back underneath. That was my key sign to look long with a stop loss just to break above this 425. This one took a little bit longer, but if you go into the higher time frames, very, very bearish just based off the 5-minute time frame. Held all the way and perfect move all the way down in towards our 420 higher time frame level, which was at 417, and we had another level, which as you can see here on the daily chart, which would have been that 416, and then we also had that basically that 415. So these are the key levels that I had for Nvidia. Sorry, this is for Tesla. Once it broke back underneath, you can see maintain nicely underneath, and that solid flush all the way down in towards that 415. Basically scaled out, right, at this point, 90% of my position, and then I ended up cutting it as it came back up. But that was the day today, right? There's a lot to talk about, but I kind of want to talk about my overall thought process since there's a lot to go over. I'll kind of do a little bit of a bigger dive here on the weekend. But essentially, right, coming to the markets, fairly neutral, leaning slightly towards the upside. And it's good to always remember that you shouldn't have a bias coming to market open. This is a great day and a great reminder to never have a bias, right? Don't marry a trade thesis on MU, right? Could I have very much held that trade? Yeah, I could, but I knew I was wrong. Qs was bearish. So I flipped, and then I saw the Qs really was staying heavy all day. So I was looking for short setups, right? Just riding the trend. You can see, end up capturing Nvidia, right? I was down at $1.9 thousand, but I ended up clawing my way back, right? Had some good setups on Nvidia, had some good setups on Tesla. Would have been even a bigger day if I managed the Nvidia trade properly. But you can see, right? All it takes is just one solid trade with continuation, and it made up for my losses. And now I'm up nicely for the day. But the thought process coming to market open, just have no bias, right? Have multiple trade theses coming into market open. We were expecting this day to be quite volatile after earnings, after FOMC. So we were fairly prepared. But yeah, crazy day in the markets. Let's actually go over the live session as well as I kind of just explain my whole thought process of the day. Other things to mention is, let's actually go into this. Yeah, let's go into the live session here currently. But yeah, just not having a bias, not sticking to it, and just being right, just reacting to price. That's what's key. That's what our job is. So you can see right off the bat here, Nvidia. Let's kind of just keep playing out the tape. So as you can see, overall QQQ, you can see within the first really 10 to 15 minutes, really strong push towards the downside. Only ticker is MU towards the highs. As for Tesla, we're kind of eyeing Tesla downside all day. So Tesla actually had a super solid drop right off the bat. You could have been looking for Tesla aggressive entry, but as you can see, MU, right, Qs is bouncing off for key level support. I wanted to take MU towards the upside here. really not a good area on MU, right? Since their risk is down in towards our previous day highs, Qs is coming back up into a resistance. It would have been much better if I got a closer entry to your 5 minute range high, or of course that previous day highs. But as we keep playing out the tape, you can see nice buyers kind of stepped in on MU. Unfortunately, overall market's still staying heavy, was not able to close above, so end up cutting MU as it came back down to my stop loss. And then as you can see here, so for Tesla now, right, as the Qs is dropping, I'm like, okay, I'm wrong on MU. Now I'm going to flip bearish. Tesla, I'm keeping an eye on this 426. I'm keeping an eye on a bunch of setups here towards the downside now. During this exact moment, right? QQQ is coming back up and towards the 625. We want to see the market stay heavy. Every pop be shorted, as you can see right here, right? Qs, we want to see the reject of the 625. SPY, we want to see the reject of the 691. And now for Nvidia, I like this setup for a push towards the downside underneath that previous day lows. So I end up taking shorts on Nvidia. And as we play out the tape, you can see overall QQQ and SPY still stayed heavy. Nice push towards the downside. So sold 50% of my position on Nvidia towards the lows. And then my thesis was I was going to maintain as long as it's underneath your 189.60. But as it came back up, and then, oh, sorry, also at the exact same time, I ended up taking Tesla here as well. With the QQQ weakness, I end up cutting Nvidia, as I mentioned, in an optimal spot, but Tesla was still staying heavy, so I end up holding Tesla. And as you can see, it took a little bit longer, but Tesla finally dropped towards our key levels. And then, of course, Nvidia, super solid drop towards the downside. Unfortunately, I was not able to hold my trailer position, but Tesla, as you can see, made up for it very nicely, all the way down in towards our key levels, which was at 414. But yeah, a decent amount of things to kind of talk about today with that trade recap, but these were all the trades that I took today. Super solid month so far on January. About to close most likely my biggest month. And of course, this is a great way to start off 2026. If you guys do have any questions or anything, you guys can, of course, drop them in the comments below. Also, I actually forgot. I actually did take a trade yesterday on, it was on Nvidia, I think, if I remember correctly. I took a loss on it. I'll touch up on this a little bit more on the weekend as well. But yeah, hopefully you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.